Thanks for staying with us on the news at 1. Let's take a look at your market news now. Asian shares were mixed today, with investor sentiment hurt by a retreat on Wall Street, while the euro skidded after German coalition talks hit an impasse. Japan's Nikkei fell amid those losses on Wall Street and a stronger yen. Semiconductor equipment manufacturers and financial stocks underperformed. The Nikkei ended 0.6% lower. Hong Kong stocks rose slightly on Monday despite pressures from that retreat on Wall Street amid tax reform uncertainty. The Hang Seng Index rose by 0.2%. Mainland China stocks reversed early losses to end higher, aided by a rebound in banking shares. The Shanghai Composite Index ended 0.3% higher. Wall Street ended the week on a sour note on Friday, with indexes slipping as investors weighed the fate of the Republicans' tax overhaul plan. Congressional Republicans took important steps on Thursday toward the biggest U.S. tax code overhaul since the 1980s, with the House of Representatives approving a broad package of tax cuts. The debate shifts to the Senate, where bill has already encountered resistance within the Republican ranks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 0.4%, the S&P 500 lost 0.2%, and the Nasdaq Composite Index dropped by 0.1%. Let's take a look at your main financial indicators now. Right, Kumalo from Investac joins me from our JSE studio. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Let's start with the US dollar against the rand, sitting at about 14.03, having traded at 30.95 on Friday. Why are we seeing this?
Yes, if you look on Friday, the dollar was weaker against the rand, and obviously the rand will be stronger as a result. But I see that today the rand is actually weaker again. I guess it's a stronger dollar. But most of that, if you look at the local economy, the South African economy, that is, if you look at the rand movements currently without any news, it's mostly short-term noise. There's nothing behind it unless something big happens.
So how much of an effect does the upcoming credit ratings agency's reviews of South Africa on the 24th have, if any, on our rand?
It has a very big impact. I mean, if we do get a downgrade, for example, South Africa currently is on they call it the MSCI bond index, and if we get downgraded and we get stripped off of that title and we're no longer in that index, which means many index funds are going to actually be forced sellers as a result, because they hold our bonds because we're part of this index, and if we're no longer there, it's really bad news, and they'll affect our rand in the interim, which will be negative, but in the long term, I don't know what it would look like, but it wouldn't be as bad.
So on Friday we saw the JCE recording gains. What was this due to?
Yes, we've seen quite a lot of businesses, Discovery, Naspers, Richmond, all of them hitting all-time highs. But it's mostly Naspers, because now I think if you look at the Swix index or the top 40 index, Naspers is more than 23% in terms of its weighting. So a small move in Naspers, means the market moves as well. We're seeing Naspers up 3.5% today. That translates to about a 0.44% move in the whole market.
Mm-hmm. Naspers is doing very well, gaining about 77% over the last year. It's looking like kind of the golden child of stocks. There's some people like PSG who's saying they don't hold Naspers, saying they don't like betting on companies that are trading the way they are at 50 times earnings, and betting that they'll grow faster than 40% into the future. What do you think of this?
Yes, I mean, it's like you're saying, obviously a company with a PE that high, the market is signaling that it should grow at that amount at least. But we know that, a PE is only one measure of, measuring a company. There's other ways. For example, Naspers is more like an investment firm. It has different assets in different jurisdictions. For example, in China, it's the Tencent asset, which is the only one that's being valued in the valuation of Naspers today as it trades. And it's even actually trading less at a discount from what it's trading at, about 25% of Tencent. And then if you go to different jurisdictions, you go to Russia, they've got mail.ru. You go to Poland, they've got PayU and other different assets there, e-commerce assets. You go to India, they've got Flipkart. You go to the Greater Europe area and Western Europe, they've got Delivery Hero, which operates in more than 45 countries, is worth close to $2.5 billion US dollars. You look in South Africa, there's OLX. South America, same story, OLX, and many other e-commerce businesses there. So all of those businesses that I've just mentioned, it's just a few of them. They're all very valued at a negative amount, and it doesn't make any sense because not all of them actually make losses. For example, the Russian business actually is profitable and it makes a lot of money, even though the Indian business Flipkart is making losses, but it's catching up. It's competing with the likes of Amazon, which usually trade at cost. They sell their goods at cost, so it's very hard to compete in that industry. But recently we've seen management being able to monetize some of those businesses, and it shows that actually those assets are worth something, even though the market is telling you that they're worth a negative amount or zero.
Mm-hmm. Someone who's not having such a good run, Netcare, when the results came out, share price dropping by about 7%. Also, last week we saw Mediclinic shares also dropping at about 6% on the announcement of their results. What's ailing the healthcare stocks?
I like that. Healthcare stocks, it depends on, where they operate, and Mediclinic has its own problems, and so has Netcare. So I'll start with Netcare. They came up with their results today, like you're saying. They've had write-downs of about $5.5 billion of their UK business, and that's mostly related to the economy, that side. It tells you that, the economy is not doing well after Brexit. Because of that UK business, they've got a lot of exposure to NHS, which is a lower margin business, government business. They take a lot of that, and that's why they're writing down that asset. And that business itself now is going to be trading at a financial loss of about 2.7 billion rands. It's not good to see. Even their revenues were down 9%. Very, very competitive market. But on the Mediclinic side of things, they went into the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, those side of Abu Dhabi, and at the beginning, the king basically changed the regulations. They call them TICA regulations, to say they will no longer pay 100% of the healthcare there. You're gonna have to pay a 20% co-payment if you are born that side. And we saw foot traffic into the hospitals, decreasing in a very big way, but that has since been reversed, and we're seeing foot traffic is actually increasing at double digits now. People are going back, to go to hospitals. I guess those nose jobs won't do themselves. And that business, so that was the biggest problem that they had there. And they also have exposure through Spire, which in the UK, which is not a market that's doing well. And the market sort of celebrated the fact that that deal didn't go through to buy 100% of Spire, because they already hold 29.9%. And in Switzerland, the business is doing pretty good. South Africa was the shining star there. Revenues up 7.7%, and business, new beds and all of that stuff is also doing well. So Mediclinic has its own problems, and Netcare has its own problems. So it's not a healthcare thing as a group.
Bright Khumalo from Vestac, thanks so much for your time on SABC News, coming to us live there from our JSE studios. It's time for a short break. I'll have more business news when we come back. Do stay with us.